Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Tasha A.F. Lemley, and this is Nashville. Welcome back to In My Place, a special project of WPLN's This is Nashville. This series was created thanks in part to support from the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. This year, you've gone with us through the steps of homelessness to housing and beyond. That's from that first point of contact between a service provider and someone experiencing homelessness, through all the twists and turns to an apartment, and then sometimes doing it all over again more than once. Last month's episode was supposed to be the last one in this season, but producer Judith Tackett and I wanted to squeeze in one more. So, over the years, I've frequently had someone ask me, so where are the families? Or why can't someone just go home? And there's a lot of reasons for that. From broken relationships, to abuse, to finances, to mental health, to death, to distance. And so we wanted to look right at this. Homelessness through the experience of family members. I want you to hear from one man who has, over his career in law enforcement, worked with families on and off the streets. This clip and this episode will be talking about love and loss, including drug use and worst-case scenarios. So if you want to pause here and listen another time, please do.
Where I was working at the time, I was a patrol officer, and there was so much of my zone that was retail/commercial. It was department stores, and the amount of shoplifting that went on there was kind of astounding. And about $3,000 a day was just walking out the door. So sometimes, the suspect would run. Sometimes they would run into the woods. Doing what I was doing, just working patrol, I always made it a point to get to know all of, everybody that was around, and you'd see familiar faces. And so I had gotten to know most of the homeless by name by that point anyway. One day I saw there was a young girl that went into the area where the homeless camp was. And this was a young, healthy, pretty girl. She was, I think she was about 19 at the time. In my mind, I was like, well, she must be going to visit her dad or brother or something like that. And then there was one day I get a call about a shoplifter, and I go in the woods looking for the guy. So around this corner, and there's a camp there. And that girl I had seen she's out there taking a shower. She's got one of those camp showers that you hang from a tree. Yeah, so I round the corner, there she is. We see each other. It startles both of us pretty good. So I'm like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. So I backpedal pretty quick and get out of sight. So anyway, I have to come back out of the woods. So I come back out, and I'm headed towards the exit. And so I walk past this camp again. And at this point, this girl's got her clothes on. And so she walks over to talk to me, and we kind of laughed about the looks on each other's faces, which was pretty hilarious. And she was really sweet, really nice. Told me her name was Val. And later on, I would meet her dad, who was actually also in that camp at the time. And I got to know them pretty well. I would talk to them every time I saw them, and I guess over the course of several months, occasionally I would notice an alcohol smell coming from her, from Val. It was concerning, somebody so young and healthy and living in that situation in a homeless camp. She drank a lot, but everyone told me that she would do any kind of drugs that she could get her hands on. I kind of watched her mental and physical health decline, let's say. And the changes I would see in her from one time I would see her to the next. Like I would go a week, like sometimes like I'd see her and then I'd see her again in a week. And just the change in that amount of time was enough that it was a little startling. maybe a year and a half, maybe this went on, and Val and her boyfriend and her dad, they were talking about it being cold, and I remember that I had a couple of had some really nice sleeping bags at home that I wasn't using anymore. I liked them so much that I had written my name on them in magic marker. So I brought him those sleeping bags and some clothes and things like that. And I guess maybe a couple of months later, a call went out about a deceased person in the woods. So I go up to the campsite and there's Val laying, she's face down on the dirt, face down, deceased. Clearly too far gone for any kind of help. Just, I couldn't help but remember how bubbly and sweet she was. While I was standing there, I looked over and there was one of my fantastic sleeping bags with my name on it, big as day, right next to this wonderful girl, deceased. She's not the last one. You know, I've seen so many more since then. I did go to Val's funeral, and I've probably lost 40, about 40 people, mostly homeless, mostly overdoses. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about some of them. Yeah.
This officer is describing the worst fear for those of us who love someone who's unhoused, especially someone in chaotic use. I will say he's remained in contact with Val's dad, who now has a home and is doing pretty well these days. And here with me to talk about the family impact of homelessness is Lisa Wysocky of Colby's Army. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
So you were on the first episode this season.
I was.
Yeah, and we're landing with you. We're going to talk about your work and your son, Colby.
Yeah.
What's been on your mind about him this morning?
You know, Colby would have turned 40 this year.
Okay.
And he passed when he was 23. He was homeless, overdose. And I just, I wonder where he would be, and as that officer was saying, where Val would be and where all these people we've lost would be if they had not been homeless.
Yeah. What was his personality like when he was growing up?
So Colby was the kind of kid who wanted to change the world and make it a better place. From the time he was, even before kindergarten, he wanted to, what he called, affect positive change. And he would go out the door every morning. Today I'm going to affect positive change.
Okay, so when he was really little?
When he was really little. And, he would befriend all these kids who didn't have friends. He would befriend the underdog, and he was always championing people who really didn't have much chance of reaching a goal, but he would help them as best he could. And but he developed some mental illnesses as early as 8. And became a really talented musician. But when he was, in his teens, he developed schizophrenia, and he was on TennCare. Mm-hmm. Then when he turned 19, that was in 1984, 85, right in there, he lost TennCare because he aged out. And I appealed it because, he had a lot of mental illnesses and some other health concerns, and they denied us. And back then, if you didn't have health insurance, you couldn't get health insurance. So he lost access to all of his mental health meds. And
so there was no Obamacare,
no.
Just to kind of set the scene for people. What year is this?
2005.
There's no real safety
nothing.
net for him, so no.
No. I remember going to Vanderbilt and a couple of other hospitals and turning him away because he didn't have insurance, and he would be suicidal. And we'd be sitting in the car in the parking lot just holding each other and crying because there was no help. And when he was 23, he passed from an overdose, and he just had said that he turned to street drugs to balance his moods, to feel normal. And, it just happened. And, shortly after, his friends and my friends got together and said, look, he was going to change the world. He was going to affect positive change, and we've got to do that. And so that's how Colby's Army got started.
So he has affected positive change and continues to?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you wish agencies understood when you were going through this?
I wish they understood that this was a real person. It wasn't a number. It wasn't somebody on a chart. This was a person who had a lot of talent. He had a lot of friends. He had a lot of promise, just like everybody else I meet out there on the street, that he had people who loved him, and he was trying really hard really hard. And all he needed was some mental health help at that point. He needed some meds and he needed some care. And I think they just saw him as a number, and they saw him as, oh, he's just a street person. He's just a homeless person. It doesn't matter. But he mattered to a lot of people.
What was your relationship like with him? You said from 19 to 23 is about when you're experiencing him declining. What was your relationship like at that time?
You know, he lived with me for a while, and then his schizophrenia got to the point where he couldn't be in a building, and he felt the walls closing in on him, and he would have panic attacks. So he was living on West End and in Centennial Park and in that area, but I saw him every other day, or I talked to him pretty much every day, and he'd come home, you know, occasionally, and he'd stand in the yard, and we'd talk, you know, and so we stayed in touch, I think more so than many other families who have somebody in homelessness. So I was aware of what was going on and, you know, what his needs were and you know, kept trying to get him help. I mean, you know, but then you think every phone call is going to be that phone call. Every time somebody knocks on the door, every time somebody turns into the driveway, it's going to be that person walking up to your door giving you the news, you know, because he's in homelessness and you know that he's, you know, he's using street drugs and you just can't rest and the anxiety is just through the roof.
You mentioned he turned to street drugs to manage his mental health, and I could imagine listeners being a bit confused by that. How would you describe to someone who's not familiar with drug use, especially those kind of drugs, how those maybe helped him for a time?
You know, I'm not a medical professional.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly all the time what he was using. I know it was opioids for the most part. And I just know that he felt quieter. His mind would quiet. He wouldn't have panic attacks. He wouldn't have the anxiety that he had without the drugs. So that was something that helped him. It helped him try to live as normal a life as he could. And he was a super talented musician. And, you know, so he was in some bands and he had a little business where he would sell used books on Amazon.
Okay.
You know, and so he was managing that for a while. And he was going to school part-time. He was delivering pizzas part-time. And so he was, you know, doing what a lot of kids do, you know, at that age, 19, 20, 21, you know.
Piecing it together in creative ways.
Exactly. But the street drugs allowed him to do that. Or the meds that he should have gotten from a mental health professional, you know, those would have helped him live a you know, I don't like the word normal, but live, you know, a satisfying life and one that was safe. But he didn't have that option.
If you've just tuned in, we're talking with Lisa Wysocky of Colby's Army about the loss of her son and the impact of homelessness on family and friends. And so, Lisa, you went through the process of losing Colby. How did you find out that he died? Did you hear from Metro?
Never. To this day, I've never heard from Metro that my son is gone. And so he died on a Saturday evening. I was home, and he had his wallet with my business card in it, and his driver's license was in it with my address, our address. And the next day at noon, I got a call from the mother of one of his friends. And I was not at home, and she said, "When will you be home?" And I said, "Probably about 2:00. And she said, "I need to come see you." And I knew, I said, "Okay, it's about Colby, right?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "What has he done?" She said, "I just need to come see you." And so she was waiting for me in the driveway when I got there, and she said, we sat down in the living room, and she said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but Colby's at the medical examiner's office." And my first reaction, Tasha, was, well, if he's there, why didn't he call me if he needed a ride?
Oh, gosh.
You know, that's your brain not being able to process that horrible, horrible news that you've been waiting for, you know, all this time. And it finally dawned on me that Colby had passed. And shortly after that, some of his friends just started arriving at the house, and people started calling, and it seemed like everybody knew except me. You know, for a long time, everybody knew that Saturday night and that Sunday morning that Colby had passed, but nobody had told me. Yeah. And to this day, I've never heard from Metro. I did call the medical examiner's office. He had already been autopsied.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me see him. So I've never seen him.
Why wouldn't they let you see him?
They just said that he was autopsied and not put back together, and that I really didn't want to see him.
How did they identify him? Fingerprints or?
They didn't identify him. I just called and said, I think my son is there. And I gave him a description, and they said, yes, he's here. And they didn't want to give me his phone or any of his effects until their investigation had been done. And I said, look, I've got people who are calling me asking if he's dead. And I said, I need to know how to get a hold of his friends. I need his phone so I can contact everybody. Yeah. And so finally they gave me his phone.
Okay. When did the idea to start Colby's Army come?
Days later, his friends started coming to me and my friends and said, he was going to change the world, and we just have to do this on his behalf. And so we started Colby's Army because we felt, well, it's going to take an army of people to accomplish what he would have done.
To affect all the positive change he was going to do in his lifetime.
Yeah, for sure. And so we started, and Tasha, we didn't know what to do. Yeah. We thought, well, we're going to change the world, but we don't know how we're going to do it. And so Colby had told me one time that a lady had stopped to give him a backpack, and he was so appreciative. And so we thought, well, we'll give backpacks out to
people.
To people in homelessness. And I don't know if it was an outreach worker, if it was just a lady who had seen him. It was near Vanderbilt campus, and he kind of thought it might have been a Vanderbilt student. But so we started giving backpacks out to people in homelessness and getting to know them. And then we thought, well, we should put something in the backpacks.
So you were just giving empty.
Yes. So starting from scratch, not knowing what to do or what we were doing. And so we started putting water and protein bars and socks and anything that we could get, we would put in. And early on, we just handed out backpacks and didn't really keep any records, and then we thought, well, we should keep records. So it was building from there. And then we got to know some of the other providers, and we got to know, Judy Tackett, and we got to know some people at Metro, and it just built from there. And right now in Metro in West Nashville and Bellevue, we're taking care of 162 people.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, food, clothing, street supplies, referrals to mental and physical health organizations and service providers that can get them phones and get them their IDs and housing and the whole thing.
We're going to go to a break soon, but I'm wondering, do you sometimes have to have the conversation with mothers that people had to have with you when he was gone?
Yes. And that's just heartbreaking. I just feel if I can be that person who can, or our team, our volunteer street outreach team can be those people who hand somebody in homelessness that backpack and give them a little bit of joy, that's what we're here to do. But we also feel that we are responsible for talking people through the bad outcomes as well.
We need to take our first break. And Lisa's with us the whole hour to talk about the impact of homelessness on family and friends. So stay tuned. This is Nashville.
How long must you wait for it? How long must you pay for it? How long must you wait for it?
I'm Tasha A.F. Lemley, and this is Nashville. We're here with Lisa Wysocky of Colby's Army. And before the break, we were talking about the loss of her son Colby, who died from an overdose while he was living outdoors at the age of 23. And hopefully for most of us who love someone who's unhoused, that worst case is not going to be our case. I want to play a clip from an interview with Rona. Both of Rona's sons have struggled with homelessness and addiction. And while her older son is in recovery now, her younger, he's in his mid-30s and is living outdoors in West Nashville. Last year, Rona dropped him off somewhere she thought he stayed at the time, and she's not seen him since.
It was heartbreaking to see him just kind of drift away. And it took about a 2-year process, I guess, before we started seeing it really snowball. And last Christmas night was the last time that we seen him. And it's very difficult to talk about because when I dropped him off in Nashville, he's over in the West Nashville area, and, I'd given him a hug, and, and he hugged me and just said, he just hated this. And I said, well, I'm going to have to figure something out, it's going to get better, and he said, I sure hope so. And he said, I hate it for Navy, talking about his daughter. And I said, she's going to be okay. Like, we're going to get through this. And that was Christmas night of 2024. And we've not seen him or heard from him since then. But we text him. We text him all the time, and we try calling him all the time. And we try to reach out to him. But, it's... please let us help you. We're not giving up on you. Telling him about his daughter, just let him know that we love him. I told him that his brother has this place that he can get him into to help him. That we have people out there that's willing to help him anytime he's ready to go, just to let us know. We'll come get him. Sharing a little bit of the fact that his mama's mind is broken at this point. My heart just, when you have your child and you can't save them, it is like them being in that water and drowning, and you watching them drown and having to stand there and watch them drown. And you've thrown in life preserver after life preserver, and they just refuse to take it.
So Rona's son is still alive. I do want to say that.
Yes.
Lisa, this has got to hit close to home. What are you hearing in this clip?
Well, it just brings me back 16 years, just and farther, just knowing that she's going through what I went through and what a lot of other people went through. And her analogy about throwing the life preserver out is so appropriate. I mean, it just hits home. And, not every person that we see in homelessness has addiction issues, but they have something.
Yeah.
They have something. And sometimes it's they're slow cognitively, or they have some physical issues, or they've lost family, they don't have any support system, but the result is the same. The causation is different. And I my heart just breaks for her. And I'm just praying that we'll have a positive outcome, and we do see her son pretty regularly.
So you've been doing street outreach in that area for a number of years, and so both Zach and Rona.
Yes, I do.
She told our producer that she sees you as her lifeline to him. How are you balancing his wishes to not be in touch with his family and with the desperation we can hear and can imagine in this clip?
Yeah. I will say that I do text Rona and I'd say, hey, we saw your son. Mm-hmm. But that's about all that I will say, because he has expressed his wishes very strongly that he doesn't want to be in touch. He's not ready. He doesn't want his family to see him like this. He's a wonderful young man, and he does have a lot of promise, and I'm just hoping he'll get through this. But we have to balance the needs of the family with the needs of our clients and our people. And if he doesn't want his family to know where he is, I ethically cannot tell them where he is.
Is it usual for outreach workers to be in touch with family members?
Not frequently, but sometimes, sometimes. A lot of times they will give us their family member as an emergency contact.
Okay, yeah.
So in that case, we feel like it's okay to reach out. And a lot of times if we don't see somebody for a month or 3 weeks or whatever, we might call a family member if we have a number for them and say, hey, have you heard from so-and-so? We haven't seen them. We're just checking. Yeah. And a lot of times they say, oh yeah, they called, last week. So we do, but not usually.
So my brother, Mike, has experienced a lot of these kind of things. And I didn't know that. I knew that he'd been incarcerated. I knew that he was experiencing multiple addictions. And so nowadays I would have put 2 and 2 together and gone, well, he's probably been homeless at some point. But it was one Thanksgiving, we happened to be home at the same time. And he referred to himself as us homeless people. And my mind was kind of blown. Like I was already working with people on the streets. I was already founding the Contributor, those kind of things. And it was like, I didn't realize it was in my own family, even though it was right in front of me. I just knew that since I was a little girl, there was always this, he's 11 years older than me, anxiety over where is he? Have we heard? I saw my mom crying in church, those kind of things, knew what it was about. She would talk very openly about not knowing where her son was. And of course, days before cell phones, it's a whole other thing.
Oh, for sure.
And so this one Thanksgiving, I think what hits me in Rona's clip, remembering that Thanksgiving, was it came time to go drop him off at the mission in town. And that was just such a full circle moment for me. Like, oh my God, like here I am going to drop my own brother off at the mission. And he was looking for some plastic bags to put a book, a comb, a couple things in, because what he would do before going in is hide those in a bush so they didn't get stolen where where he was staying. And I remember my mom, she was a very little woman, and she was down on the ground on the floor in the kitchen digging under the sink to find the really good plastic bag. Wow. And I just remember looking at her in that moment going, like, she's looking for the good bag so that her boy can wrap his things to hide a book and a comb in a bush before he stays at the mission. And it just, so when Rona says she dropped him off, like those words stick with me. Yeah. That feeling of dropping this person, I admire him more than just about anybody in the world. He's my big brother. Yeah. And that feeling of dropping him off somewhere is so helpless and not knowing when you're going to hear again. Mm-hmm.
And your mom, the only way she could care for her son was to give him the good plastic bag, and that just became all consuming, all important for her. And I totally understand that.
And that, I know there have been times in my life where I breathe easier when he's locked up. Mm-hmm. I know his address. Yes. When he's in jail, I know his address. So, so that's what I'm hearing in this clip. And Lisa, you, like you said, you got to be in touch with Colby, like, yes. and you this is unusual and such a gift. You were in close contact with him the whole time, and especially the 6 months leading up to the end of his life. Talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like for you and how you identify with family members and friends like Rona. Yeah. Who can't be in touch.
There were periods where Colby was not in touch. And there was one whole summer when he and he had apparently been traveling around the country, and I didn't know where he was. He wasn't in touch. His friends wouldn't tell me where he was, and I don't even know that they knew. But it was just just frantic, and I couldn't rest, and I know Rona can't rest, and you just feel that you're going to get that terrible phone call. You just know it's coming, and but not knowing, and it's cold out, or it's raining, or there's a storm, and you're worried about them, and do they have dry clothes? Do they have socks? As a parent, particularly, you have this need to care for your child, and you can't do that when you don't know where they are, and it balances against the people the families where they really don't want to be in contact with their person. And we were checking on one lady about 6 months ago. We hadn't seen her, and we'd been seeing her every week. And her ex-husband was listed as an emergency contact, and I called him, and he said, I moved out of state to get away from her. Mm. And he said, here's a number for her son who's in Kentucky. And so I called him, and he said, I don't want to have anything to do with her, but if she contacts me, I'll let you know. Okay. And so then we've got that end of the spectrum as well, where somebody, usually due to mental illness, has so disrupted a family just because the mental illness has not been able to be controlled or medicated or treated, that the family said, look, she's destroying our family, or he's destroying our family. We can't have them as part of this anymore.
And what a line to walk, because that was what my mom walked, was, my mom and dad, it was desperate to know he was okay. He can't come here if he's drunk. that holding those both at the same time.
Yes. I had a first cousin who had schizophrenia also. And fortunately, we were able to get her declared a ward of the state, and she was in a group home most of her life. But before that, she would threaten my mother. She would walk down the street with a hammer. She would show up at a church and take her clothes off, and she would just be so disruptive. And from her perspective, she felt threatened all the time.
Yeah.
She felt that this was doing the right thing to wear tinfoil on her head was keeping her safe. And from her perspective, this was normal. And so you have to look at it from that standpoint as well. And show some compassion to the people, because that's their reality.
What about that blame that comes on families? Do you hear when you're fundraising or when you are out in the community or get criticism online? I'm just making some stuff up right now that I imagine. Do you hear some people say about family blame?
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind is the big criticism we get is people who are in homelessness are lazy. And we find that not to be true. They're doing everything they can to earn money. They're doing everything they possibly can. But they have mental illness, or they have physical illness, or they have cognitive issues where there's one gentleman who really wants to work, but cognitively there's no way he can work a cash register. And I don't want to put limits on anybody, but I just don't see him in a job in retail, which is what he wants.
Yeah.
So there's that to consider. We have found, heartbreakingly, sadly, that not often, but sometimes people are homeless because life at home is worse. And there's abuse at home, and there's neglect at home, and there is such dysfunction in the family that they would rather be out on the street. And we have also learned to contact families with a lot of caution, because that person might be running from domestic violence and hasn't shared that with us, and we're very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
And that person might be trafficked by family members. And we don't know that. So we're very, very cautious, when we do reach out, because we don't want to make things worse by any means.
Right. Is it easier? And then maybe we'll do some finger quotes here, like I'll to help other people's sons than it was your own.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of it, Tasha, is we are so far ahead of where we were in 2005, 2009. Mm-hmm. We are light years ahead as a community and as a nation in being able to help people in homelessness. We were in the infancy back then, and there just wasn't, there were organizations out there, but they were few and far between.
Yeah.
Now we have a lot more providers, and we have a lot more places to turn. If somebody needs an ID, I know where to send them. If somebody needs mental health services, I know where to send them. If somebody, back then, and that was what was so difficult for me, is not knowing the system and not knowing who to call. And you'd call and call and call, and they would say no. That he doesn't qualify. He for whatever reason, they would exclude him. He doesn't have insurance, or he's not the right age, or he doesn't live in the right county, or whatever. He doesn't have the right mental health issue.
Yeah.
So today it's a lot easier because of that, and it is easier to step back from the emotion.
Yes.
When it's not my child.
That's what I was going to say with my brother. I have felt like it's easier to help other people's brothers than it is to help my own. And sometimes I can feel some guilt or shame over that. And at the same time, if someone else's brother is experiencing the same things, I can love on them in a different way that my whole body and soul are not so wrapped up in.
Right. Yes. And I think you feel that inner anxiety when it's, close to you, when it's a family member or a dear friend. You have that inner anxiety that just kind of ramps up and just causes a lot of stress in yourself when you're trying to help somebody that's that close to you.
Well, and I think the other way around too, right? Like now that I'm thinking about it, other people's brothers will take what I have to say differently than this is my kid's sister.
Yes,
right?
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, too, that everybody that we meet is so grateful for just even conversation. It doesn't matter if we have meals or clothes or,
Yeah.
it's just they're so grateful for that, to know that somebody cares about them.
We have to take one last break, and then we're going to try to infuse some hope and land this hour and land this series in a good place. So stay with us. This is Nashville.
Please, 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 come back and sing to me now, now. Come back and sing it out, out. Come back and sing to me.
I'm Tasha A.F. Lemley, and this is Nashville. This is our final episode of Season 2 of our special series, In My Place. This season has been a bit heavier than I think I anticipated. There's so much joy and hope in getting from homelessness to housing. That's what makes it happen. And at the same time, the twists and turns are grueling, not just for the person who's unhoused, but for the folks around them. Elizabeth Stratton has seen years of ups and downs with her 30-year-old son. He used to be homeless in Nashville, but for the last year, he's been living in another state. And we spoke to Elizabeth in her home just after she had gotten back from visiting him for a few days.
I try to help when I can. I've learned to not ask too many questions. There's a shame around it, or I don't want him to feel like he's got to make up something to satisfy my question. But I'm lucky because we do keep in touch. Now, there have been times where we went, several months or maybe even a year that I didn't. And that, of course, just wears you down, the not knowing. But, I can wear my heart on my sleeve, which I've done in the past. But I have to take care of myself, too. So, I don't know. It's conflicting. I don't know if he'll ever come back home. I'm not ready for him to come back home, and the family's not ready for him to come back home. It's just been a lot. Yeah. And he's taken a lot, and, emotionally and materially and financially. And there's just been, everyone needs a little breathing space. I think he's where he needs to be right now.
Man, I am so grateful for her to be able to talk so straight to this. For a little bit of context, Elizabeth says she feels her son is where he needs to be right now because he's in a state where he has better access to services and he's using fewer drugs. And she says she's starting to see the person she knows again, not the stranger he had become. Lisa Wysocky from Colby's Army is still here with us in the studio. So Lisa, what do you hear in that sentence? He's where he needs to be right now.
Yeah, every path is different for every single person, and what works for one person to get them off the streets is not going to work for the person who's sitting right next to them. And everybody has individual goals, individual needs, and it's going to take a lot of creative thinking and a lot of honesty to be successful in housing somebody. I loved what she said when she was taking care of herself. I don't think I did a very good job of that, and I think a lot of family members don't. So I think that was really important. And if she's taking care of herself, she can better take care of her son, whether he's in state or out.
I'm wondering, listening to her, if the distance can be good in a way. My brother is a couple hours away. I can't imagine how I would feel if he were 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
Do you think that distance can be healthy?
I think it can be. I think it gives the person who's living outside a little bit of space also to try to figure out what they need. And a lot of people we talk to, they initially don't know. They don't know what they need. And so we try to get them focused on okay, what does housing look like for you? What is a group situation going to be okay? Can you navigate stairs? Are you going to need some support, after you're housed? Do you see yourself in an apartment? Do you see yourself, in a rural setting or urban? And so once they can kind of identify those things, which I think happens better when there is a little bit of distance, then success can be a little bit more forthcoming.
So we've got one mother, Beth, who we just heard from, with some more distance, saying she doesn't want him to come home. We have the other mother from our last segment, Rona, who's desperate for her son to come home. you said you didn't do a great job. How did you take care of yourself when Colby was alive, especially those last 4 years, especially the last 6 months? And what is the gift of that experience you have to give to other family members now about what are some practical things we can do to take care of ourselves?
Yeah, I don't think I did anything to take care of myself, honestly. I mean, I really don't. I was totally focused on trying to keep Colby healthy and to get him medical attention.
So being totally focused on that, what did that look like on a day-to-day basis?
So it meant that I was not focused on my job. I was a music industry publicist at the time, and I was writing books, and my work suffered because I couldn't focus. I would drive around looking for him. I would be calling his friends or parents of his friends, trying to find
every day.
Every day. Yeah. Just so worried that he couldn't take care of himself, which he did an excellent job, really. I mean, he passed, but he was outside long enough that, he knew how to take care of himself in a storm or whatever. But I think, families need to take a breather. They need to realize that people are going to be ready when they're ready. It's going to be on their time frame and not on the family's time frame. They're going to be ready. It's just like anybody who's in addiction, they're going to be ready for rehab when they're ready, whether they're housed or not. If somebody is cognitively slow or they have a physical disability and they're living unhoused, they're going to be ready for housing when they're ready. And you can gently suggest. I think the more you push, the farther away that reality becomes.
What are some healthy ways you've seen families stay in contact?
So I think coming out for special days, whether it's a birthday or 4th of July. I mean, I know a lot of people will say, "Hey, I'd like to see you. I know it's Grandma's birthday or it's your birthday. Will you join us for lunch?" That type of thing. And people generally respond well to that. Sometimes it's, "Hey, we're having a little family get together on Saturday. Would you come?" And then just not push, just enjoy the time that you have for what it is. Ask, very casually and gently, "Is there any way I can help? What can I do?" And just let them come to you. Let them come to you.
Gosh, is that so much easier said than done?
Oh, I know. I've been there. I know.
I know you know.
And as I said, I didn't do a good job of that. And I see families that are out of city or out of state, who will say, "Hey, if you'd like to come for Thanksgiving, I'll send you a bus ticket."
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's very effective. But then, going back to taking care of yourself, I do think you have to just say, "Okay, a lot of this is out of my hands. I have no control over this." And that's the hard part. That's the hard part. And for people like Rona and myself particularly, it's like a lot of this is out of my hands. And nothing I can say or do is going to make a difference.
I imagine that experience of checking in and hearing a little bit and getting that rush of relief almost being an addiction in itself.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah, I can see it. It could be. And I know Rona's son knows his family loves him and cares about him. I know that. But he has to come to this on his own. Yeah. And that might be today, and it might be next week, and it might be next year. And, the more Rona and myself and other family members can just say, "Okay, we're going to help and support." We're just going to gently reach out, let them know that we're here. The better off everybody's going to be, I think.
And Rona said in another part of her interview that we didn't play today that her Christian faith is what's getting her by many days. What are some of the other things when someone might be trying to take care of themselves, not checking in constantly, trying not to drive around every day, taking care of other children, jobs, family members, friends?
Yeah.
What are some other things that you see can lower that temperature if that's at all possible. Find some regulation.
Yeah, I think as a parent of somebody who is living outside, you lose the ability in a lot of ways to parent that child. And even when children are adults, you still parent that is your child. And so finding something else that is of purpose, finding some way to give back, finding something that is meaningful for you, it would be super, super helpful. And I think, whether that's, volunteering someplace, whether it's taking a special interest in a grandchild who maybe needs a little extra support, crafting, redecorating the house. I mean, finding a project that is meaningful, I think is the best thing ever.
That's incredible that you're actually suggesting in the middle of your own crisis, helping other people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, it's gotten me through.
Okay, so we've got a couple minutes left. We are in a season where people do have unhoused people on their mind. SNAP benefits, Lisa, all of this going on. What do people do who listen to this and want to help? And, over Thanksgiving, over Christmas, let's just say over this winter time period.
Yeah. I think everybody year-round should be carrying bottles of water and protein bars, to be able to hand out. We always suggest people...
I'll throw Narcan in there.
Narcan, yes, absolutely. Narcan, water, protein bars, healthy food, just to be able to hand out your window. That's year-round.
Packaged things also.
Things, yes.
Like sandwiches are great, but go for something that's already in a package.
Something that's already in a package, and just remember that 5 other people may have stopped and given that person a hamburger. So give them something that's portable that they can take with them, and don't give money. Give something of hand out gloves, hand out socks. Winter caps, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Gift cards to, McDonald's or Dollar General or something like that. $5 or $10 would make a difference.
The McDonald's gift cards also, that gives someone a bathroom.
Yes.
That gives someone Wi-Fi access, cell phone charging access, and somewhere to be out of the elements for a couple hours.
Yes, it really does. It really does. And, I think finding an organization that you like the work that they're doing to make a contribution to them. All of the providers are struggling. Let me say that. We are all overloaded. At Colby's Army, everybody is a volunteer. We don't have any money to pay anybody, so we're all volunteers. Finding an organization that means something to you, and if you don't have money to donate, I tell people even $5 or $10 can make a difference to some of the smaller providers, but ask what they need. Ask if they need winter coats, ask if they need socks, ask if they need chapstick, those types of things, and then go around your community and see if you can collect some of that.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Lisa Wysocky of Colby's Army, here to talk about her son Colby and, what's his phrase again?
Affecting positive change.
Affecting positive change.
Yeah.
Special thanks, especially to all the lived experience folks who allowed us to share their stories and follow them on their journey this year. Ashley, Kelly, Denny, Irene, Lisa, Jamie, Anita, Cheryl, Connie, Gerald, Sean, Kip, Mama V, Black Dragon, Jonquil, Daniel, Keith, Norma, the young people from Launchpad, and many of the folks we encountered living on the streets, as well as everyone we had in our studio this year. And I'll send a special shout out to my brother, Mike French. I hope you're well and happy birthday. And you guys, it's been such a joy to work with Judy on this series. So we've known each other for 20 years, and this is the first time we've really been able to work on something together. And Judith Tackett, she's gone from print to audio like a champ, and with so much heart. So thank you, Judy. Thank you again for listening. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. This housing series, In My Place, was created thanks in part to support from the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. Thank you, guys. You can hear all the episodes on thisisnashville.org or however you podcast. Today's episode was produced and directed by Judith Tackett. On the board today, Mary Mancini. And our cover of In My Place by Coldplay is courtesy of Vane Melter. I'm Tasha A.F. Lemley, and this is Nashville. We love you. Keep going, you guys.